Hello. Amazing. I kind of like that song. That was actually a new beat that we dropped on that little intro, and I really liked it. That was kind of a vibe. Love that for me. Wonderful. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to this week's episode of Cybersecurity Stand Up. I'm your host. My name is Bronwyn Hudson, and I'm the social media manager at Uptycs. Super happy to be here today talking about an incredibly important topic, which is mental health in cybersecurity. And today I've got some wonderful guests, Crystal, Mark, and Amanda. And I'm going to start off with a little lightning round of introductions. Crystal, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, my name is Crystal Poenisch. I am a product marketing manager at Uptycs for cloud security.
Mark, what's the Mark all about?
Well, I mean, shockingly, I have the title on the screen, but I'm the head of integrated marketing at Uptycs. Big advocate of all things being your authentic self and remote work and culture building. So stoked to be here on this chat.
Yay, thanks for joining us. And we have another special guest, Amanda Berlin, who is the lead incident detection engineer at Blumira and also the CEO of Mental Health Hackers. Amanda, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so that's me. I lead a great team of detection engineers at Blumira, and we kind of get to play around in the lab all day with just detecting really bad stuff. So it's like my dream job. I really enjoy, digging through logs all day, oddly enough. And then, I'm the CEO of Mental Health Hackers, which is a nonprofit that I started, I don't know how many years ago now, six years ago, maybe.
Nice.
It's been a wild ride.
Fantastic. I'm definitely going to ask you more about Mental Health Hackers in the live here because I'm really excited to hear about it. Seems like an amazing organization, but I want to start off a little bit more broadly, and we're going to keep this conversation very lively. So please feel free to interrupt each other all the time and butt in with your opinions. I'd love to hear them. This is a really important topic. I'm sure all of you know, and all of our audience knows too, but May is Mental Health Awareness Month, which is just an opportunity to bring conversations like these to the absolute front, to check in with your friends about how they're doing, to check in with yourself about how you're doing, and to address some of the concerns that we have in the mental health conversation. And one of the reasons that I want to talk about this month is that there are some really unique challenges that cybersecurity professionals face because of the industry we're in, because of the roles that we have. And honestly, Amanda, what you just said about like detecting all the bad stuff, I think that's really indicative of something that's challenging about this career, this industry, is that we're facing threats, we're facing bad news, breaches. Can you tell us a little bit about how you deal with that?
From the actual technical perspective or from the mental health perspective?
I think mental health, but I feel like technical is probably part of that, right?
Yeah. So a lot of the challenges that I see and hear of, because I'm in a very unique position, being that I did not go to school for anything mental health related, right? I always start out with saying I am not a mental health professional, right? Because it's all based on my experiences in life and things that have worked for me and other stories that other people have told me. So it's very much a peer support network, which is phenomenal. But a lot of the struggles that I see before COVID seem to be a lot of, because of the work from, like, a lot of people in tech worked from home before COVID, and now even more do. So it's kind of even more of a widespread issue than just tech. But our field tends to attract people that don't necessarily want to be around others, right? Mm. So we have a very wide spectrum of mental health conditions. And when I actually first started researching this, before I even created, I was like trying to create this talk, right? And doing this research found that there were actual like Stanford studies that go into people in STEM having a higher occurrence of mental health disorders, which they kind of explained it like you're so smart that your brain just starts to like consume itself and you become a little bit too self-aware. Yeah, so that was some of the stuff that I learned when I was starting to research this kind of stuff. So we do see a lot of people in STEM with a lot of just a lot of challenges.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Crystal, what do you think is unique to the cybersecurity industry when it comes to challenges with mental health?
That was really eye-opening, Amanda. It's so interesting to hear you say that. Honestly, just thinking, so I've been in, I don't know, in this industry 5 to 10 years. I think the thing that's most unique to it, I don't know. I mean, it's for me, like the biggest challenge I personally face. I don't know that I could speak much more broadly, but for me personally, it's like the decompressing because I work from home and because my career and my work life is truly this abstract thing that exists in a bubble that my family has no idea about. It's I'm living in this like little place, and then here's my real tangible world, and then here's my work world. So
Mm.
how I separate from the two has been really, really challenging for me, and actually having work-life boundaries that allow me to take care of myself and decompress and separate those two in a real way. That's been my personal challenge.
Yeah, that's super fair. Mark, we were chatting yesterday about some of these topics, like not only how do you decompress, but how do you maintain boundaries, especially when it comes to this industry that is like constantly demanding, constantly have to stay alert, constantly responding to like new crises. How do you take care of yourself?
Well, and I think it's important, as Crystal said, it's work-life boundaries.
Mm,
I think people get caught up in the balance, work-life balance as the statement, and it's never going to be balanced. The reality of the world we're living in, and this kind of like 24/7, your work's always on your phone. My kids will interrupt calls when they get home from school. Like you're in a world now where work and life are always integrated. And so it's not about balance, it's about boundaries, and it's about kind of understanding your moment in time. And that's where all that stress comes in too. There was a study that found that I think ESG found that 69% of cybersecurity professionals have experienced burnout. And I think that's in part because it's like you've got your high stress, high stakes job on the one side, and then all of your family stress, all of the challenging things going on the other side. I mean, for me, some of my biggest moments, I mean, when I had COVID and I was recovering from that, it was a really high stress time. And when I lost my dad, very high stress time, and all of that stuff. You like to think that you can compartmentalize. You like to think that you can have that work-life balance and divide, but it bleeds over. And I think understanding that everybody is also a human and they're going through those things is key. But the boundaries you put in place could be as simple as I like to talk about microdosing, but microdosing as it relates to time off for this context. I think it's really important because you can be having a really rough day and you can understand it and you can recognize it and you can have that
mm,
self-awareness and knowing that you need to take an hour to go and take a walk. Knowing that tomorrow morning you're sleeping in and you're not starting work until noon. You don't have to take 6 days off to break away. Sometimes you just need an hour or a few hours and you need a different setting and you need to break away. And so I think that the boundary that Crystal was talking about is so critical there.
Yeah, we call that free for all at Blumera. So we started that like when we had like 10 employees, like really, really early on. We're like, you know what? If you get really upset with something, or if you're we had somebody with like panic disorders, so they were having a panic attack. Like if you need to step, just do it. Like cancel all your stuff, walk away. You are better after you come back from that than you ever will be trying to like plow through it, right? So yeah, I think more people should take advantage of it always, right? Because it's hard when you get into like leadership positions and like all of that kind of stuff to take advantage of those things. But yeah, it's always a good thing to try and implement with just like, yes, you're feeling really super stressed and you want to like flip your desk right now, go for a walk.
Ideally, instead of flipping your desk, just
Yes.
for your own sake.
Right,
Yeah, totally.
right.
I want to talk about that from a leadership point of view as well, because not only sort of like from the hiring and firing sort of like management standpoint, but just from a team leader. Like if you're in charge of people in any way, how can you make sure that your team is taking care of their own mental health? Mark, I want to hear from you.
If you don't do it, then they won't do it. Right? Like you have to model it. You have to do it first. You have to show what that looks like. You know, I'm a very extra person. I don't know if people can tell from like my background or my Ninja Turtle shirt, but you know, and part of that is I hit it for so many years of my professional career where I was trying to fit myself into this box and then wondering why I can't get people to take breaks or be their authentic selves. Well, I wasn't doing it myself. So, you know, I think you have to lead very visibly by example. It's not even so much doing it. You have to talk about it. You have to talk about, yeah, I'm going to take a 2-hour break because I want to take a walk. I want to, you know, enjoy the outside. It's nice weather. I need a break away from this, or even just allowing yourself to be, how do I put it, visibly upset or having a difficult day and admitting that out into into the Slack channel world. Like toss that out there. Like I'm having a difficult day, everybody, just so you know. I might be a little slower to respond. I'm going to need to take some breaks today. You know, you need to be able to do those things. Otherwise nobody else will.
I agree with you. Amanda, is it the same kind of thing at Blumira that, you know, leading by example, leading from the top is where is how it really happens?
Yeah, so that's what we see, right? So like we have a lot of leadership that definitely does that, right? But I've seen also in other companies. So I had a friend of mine that was surprisingly ended up as CEO of this startup and had talked to me about a couple different challenges that he was seeing. And even as CEO, he was having a hard time getting that message across because it's not just you, right? It can't just be one of the leadership. It needs to be a cultural thing. I've heard the hardest thing to do is to change that culture, right? Like it is a very, very difficult thing to, because even in that culture, bringing up the fact that it's being looked at the wrong way can be taken as a negative, right? So in those cases, I don't know necessarily that just one person in leadership can change it. It has to kind of just be a cultural shift. But yeah, it definitely helps that, you know, multiple people at the top are like, yeah, I felt burnt out lately. I'm gonna take a couple days, or I'm gonna take an hour, or you know, change my diet, something, right? Like just being open and honest about it.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Crystal, I was chatting with you yesterday, it feels like 100 years ago, and we were chatting about what it means to have like that actual boundary and that separation between like work life and home life, especially when the like physical space you're in is the exact same. And you, I thought, had some really good insight into like how you're delineating and how like what you're doing to decompress. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, definitely. At the risk of also feeling a little vulnerable for even having these boundaries, right, and drawing certain lines. But yeah, I'll tell you. So I've been realizing just how much like focus matters, and you keep seeing research on this, right? Like your ability to focus on your work is your number one predictor of success. So if I'm checking my Slack at 6 a.m. and I'm like, as soon as I'm getting ready, my brain is like, I'm already wired up, or at 7 p.m. at night, 8 p.m. when I have Slack on my phone, like I realized there's this almost like my heart rate never went down. And every time I would check, because you are so passionately invested, right? Like, especially when we do startups, we're gunning for something, right? Like that's why we do this. We're building something, we're driving towards something. So I always have this desire to work and this urgency, and I love my work and I love the validation. But then I come back and I have my daughter and my family and my home, and my brain is still constantly in work mode. And I was just realizing how much I'm robbing my family of that time. And then also, like, my daughter's going to graduate from high school in 4 years. I don't have a lot of time left, right? I've spent a lot of time thinking about work. I want to make sure I'm separating the two. All that is the lead up for what I'm realizing now is that, so I close my laptop when I sign off, 5 or 6 p.m. I shut it down. I just close it. I don't come back to it. I don't have Slack on my phone. And I do like what's literally like at least an hour long decompression period. And now I've communicated it to my family and my daughter, and everyone knows. I take a shower, I take a bath, I go do a massage thing, I meditate, I read a book. And then after that hour and a half, I come down to my family and we hang out and we make dinner. But otherwise, it takes me so long to physically just decompress and be relaxed and come back to the grounded person I really am, like the true me, the authentic me, whatever. So that's how I've drawn those boundaries. So
I love that. I wanted to tell everyone about a graphic that I saw, and I'll resurface it on LinkedIn at some point. But it was this method basically for doing that, for like ways that you can essentially prevent burnout and like kind of like safeguard your mental health. And it was called the Swiss cheese method. And the graphic was a bunch of pieces of Swiss cheese, all of which, have different holes in them. And basically, coming in from one side of the Swiss cheese packet is like all of your work stuff, all of the things that are going to impact your mental health. And on the opposite side is your mental health, which you're trying to protect. And so all of the layers of Swiss cheese represent different tools that we can use, like a walk, checking in with your friends, taking a whole day off, getting a massage, like any other tactics that you work, because not one of those won't just work for protecting your mental health. You can't just go for a walk every day and like you're all good. A bath is actually not going to fix everything. That is just the truth. But if we layer these things, we can help ourselves like actually protect our mental health. I'd love to kind of keep being vulnerable if we're open to doing that. Something that I do to protect my mental health is play roller derby. And it's like not only a great chance to like skate around really fast, but it's a contact sport. And I truly can't recommend a contact sport enough, especially as an adult when like everyone is, able to communicate, like if they're not willing to be hit. But when you have a group of people who are willing to use your sport time as a chance to get out some stress and smash into each other, it is really wonderful. It is highly therapeutic. So plug for roller derby now and forever. Amanda, can you tell us about some of the things that you do?
So funny story. I almost joined a roller derby team, and like 3 weeks later, snapped my ACL.
No.
Yeah. No. And then my mom's like, no, you're never joining a roller derby team. You are too accident prone. You are definitely not allowed. I'm like, all right, fair. So yeah, you're right. I love the Swiss cheese, like that explanation. That is brilliant. Because there isn't just one thing, right? And I'm constantly finding new things.
Yeah.
Right. So I found something about midway through COVID. I don't say midway through COVID, like end of 2020. I think of it as like this 2-year block of hell. But end of 2020, where a friend of mine for Christmas had gotten me some drawing supplies. And I had for so long, like doodled on my kid, like if they have a brown bag lunch, like doodled on that or drawn them notes or just random stuff. Right. And I actually got like this professional drawing kit and just took off. Right. Like I have a hard time shutting my brain off, which I think a lot of people in tech do. And it even like exercising or doing whatever, I would still always like my brain would be on and I would be just thinking about. I found so far drawing is the one thing that shuts off my brain.
Wow.
Right. And it took me that long. Right. It took me a very long time to find that kind of one thing that I gravitated towards. And it kind of gave me this other piece of the Swiss cheese that I kind of needed.
Yeah.
So that's one major thing that I found recently that helped a lot.
That's actually really encouraging to hear because I think we have to just continually add to the arsenal.
Mhm.
In my experience, like you have to keep trying to find things that are going to work, whether you have like capacity for them, whether you have the funds for them, whether you have the ability. So I'm so happy to hear that like you've just continued adding to the heavy pack of Swiss cheese that we all need
Yeah.
to keep restocking. Yeah,
Right, right.
I'm gonna run with that one. I think. Yeah. Gotta find who created it. Mark, one thing that I was talking with you about recently was the utility in changing something about your physical space to kind of help with mental blocks or, just like struggle busing a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what you do?
Yeah. So if I find myself really stressed out, I'll turn on a bunch of. So I've got a lot of lighting going on. This jukebox behind me, I've got all the LED lights and everything in it, and so I will completely change the look and feel, or I'll even sometimes flip myself to the reverse side of my desk
Ooh.
just to get a different viewpoint to re-engage. I also so normally in my work mode, I'll be listening to Spotify, and it's a lot of like, well, actually, honestly, it's a lot of hip hop. So, but anything really energetic and fun. But when I'm having a tough day, I like to completely change what I'm even listening to.
Mm,
Honestly, that's how I got into K-pop. Is I just needed something happy and fun that I didn't know, and went through a whole K-pop rabbit hole. But oftentimes, if I need to relax, I go old school. I'll put on some vinyl records, or I even have like 108-track tapes where I'll put that on because it has a different sound, a different vibe, and it just kind of brings my mind back to like simpler times, or I don't know, there's a relaxing mode on it that really helps me. But yeah, I think changing your space, changing where you're at physically, changing the type of music you're listening to, what's going on around you, it can help. For me, it's like Crystal's decompression zone. Like I just need something different. I need to shift out of whatever the heck I'm doing and whatever that stress is, because your stress is also attached to your space. And so if you don't
mm,
change it up, you're just kind of sitting in that stress, and that is not helpful. So highly recommend changing it up. Also highly recommend experiencing new things. Simply going on Spotify and listening to a music genre you don't ever listen to is one of the easiest ways to experience something new and exciting in the middle of a workday.
mm.
So highly recommended.
Love that. Also, I would definitely go to a spa called Crystal's Decompression Zone. Did you guys catch that?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, like sign me up.
Yes.
I play Japanese like Zen spa music in the background too. I turn all the lights off. It's only candles. It's so nice.
That's
Amazing.
more my speed, I think, is trying to like create this otherworldly atmosphere because I think that's something that allows me to stop thinking about work. But yeah, because I'm the same, and I think for it's funny. I actually have felt that there's a lot of similarities between I'm a social media manager and between the social media role and honestly roles like yours, Amanda, where you're like combing through logs and like if there's an issue, you have to respond like
Yeah.
immediately. And
Right.
if
Because
you
we've seen what happens when like there's really crappy social media managers that are just like, no, screw you, customer. Or they, like you can't do that. So same thing. Like you just can't ignore it.
right. And that means that I'm letting, but also it's part of the job. I feel that the job bleeds over into my life in some
It
way.
does.
So
Yeah.
being able to like exercise the muscles of separation, this is the time where I'm thinking about something else. Maybe I can divert if I need to, but like it's a mental exercise that I have to do like constantly. Yeah. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Amanda, while we have you here, I would love to hear more about mental health hackers, what they do, how people can get involved, how they can join. Can you tell us all about it?
Sure. So, like I said, I was creating this talk, right? So I had been giving technical talks for a couple years, and besides Nashville reached out to me and asked for me to give my first keynote ever. And
Ooh,
I'm like,
wow.
oh, that's awesome. Like I was really super excited. And I'm like, I had recently started talking about my own struggles on like social media, and was surprised at some of the responses, because people are like, oh, you're always smiling, you're always happy, like how could you ever be depressed? And I just kind of took that, and other people had told me that they had gotten certain similar feedback. So I'm like, that's interesting. I wonder if there's anything specific to InfoSec that could tie into this. So I created this talk called, Hackers, Hugs, and Drugs, Mental Health and InfoSec.
Amazing title.
Yeah. And it was, it kind of started out with like my own struggles when I was married, and like how I found out I had anxiety, the different medication I went on, and the stories around all of that. And then just some examples and explanations of some really common mental health diagnoses. So that was like, and I also did like this poll into InfoSec. I sent it out on Twitter and stuff, and asked people several questions around mental health related things, like, do you feel valued? Do you ever feel depressed or sad? Like all of this very unscientific poll, but still, like I kind of wanted to know. And so I put all of that in the talk, and it was so super well received that I normally only given talks maybe twice, right? Because they're recorded, they're posted online, information changes so often, like why submit the same content in multiple places? This one I gave, I think, 14 times within that next year.
Wow.
And people just kept on resonating with it. Like they would come up and be like, oh my God, I thought I was the only one struggling with this. And it was just like a very weird place to put myself in, because like I said, I'm not a professional mental health person. Like I do defensive security. Like who am I to be like talking to these people? And I'm like, you know what I probably could do is I could start a workshop or a village or something that allows more people than just the 10 to 100 that come to watch the talk, right? So this was, again, I'm bad with years, whatever the second to last DerbyCon was, which was in Louisville, Kentucky. And they gave me, they're like, do you want sponsors? Do you want to raise money? Like, what do you want to do to like kind of run your room that we give you? And I had only asked for 4 hours. Like, we're going to give you 3 full days. How do you want to fund? Because at that point, it was just me. And I'm like, well, shit, I don't know. Like, I don't have enough money to fund this. So I'm like, I'm going to see if there's a lot of interest in the community for this. So I put out a GoFundMe, and like within the first hour, we had raised $6,000.
Oh my gosh.
Right? Because nobody had done anything like this before, right?
Yeah.
There was like chill out rooms where you could go and like relax or whatever. But the first room was a mental health village that we had our own talk track. So it was people from InfoSec that came in, and like one person gave a talk about how organizing their pen test results a certain way helped their mental health because they're a pen tester. And somebody that talked about like their traumatic brain injury, and someone talking about microdosing, and like just this huge range of talks from peers about mental health related topics. So that was one side. And the
Incredible.
other side, we did like snacks, adult coloring books. We had a therapy dog. We brought in massage therapists to give like the corporate chair massages. We had those, those big blow up like air loungers. We had those so people could come in and take a nap. We had like weighted blankets, like you name it, like all the mental health related things that you could think of. And I just thought it was this one time. Right. And afterwards, I had people coming up to me that were companies asking like, how do we sponsor this? Wow. And me being like, it's just me. I don't know. I don't know how you sponsor this.
Wow.
So yeah, after that, that was in September. And then the next, by the end of that month, we started operating as a business in Ohio. And then by the next April, we had our federal nonprofit designation. And I have
Very
like
cool.
a board of like 8 people now, and we have over 200 volunteers. We can run that village 6 times simultaneously.
Wow.
So we have people like we'll ship kits out. Like I just sent one to Hack Space Con and they ran it themselves. Like I just shipped that, all the instructions, like this is how you do it.
Wow.
And we've been like I went to New Zealand, Germany, all over the States. We've been to Canada. Like everywhere. So it just blew up, right? It was one of those things that like I never had planned to talk about this all the time.
Wow.
Yeah, it exploded and it was so much fun.
That is an incredible journey.
Yeah.
Truly. Super inspiring, and what a cool thing that it's also taken you to different places. I mean, to say nothing of how much that's like indubitably improving people's lives
Right.
on the day to day. That's incredible.
I never have had so many people like cry on my shoulder that were strangers. They just like come up to me. They're like, "Oh my God, thank you so much. Like, I didn't know I had a problem. You saved me from this." And just like pouring their heart out. I'm like, oh my gosh.
It's such an indicator that there's a need
Yeah.
as well. Like if
Yeah,
you're getting that kind of response, it's an indicator that there is basically a crisis happening.
Yeah.
You know, like too many people are experiencing that and not talking about it, and then maybe learning about it or learning about themselves through you for the first time.
And if you think about it too, like the majority of tech is men, right? And who has a higher likelihood of not reporting any mental health issues is men.
Yeah.
So we see a lot of that just because of the kind of like the
additional stigma.
Yeah, right.
Totally. Yeah. Amazing. We're coming up on time. Can you tell people where to find more about mental health hackers?
Sure. So we have our website, mentalhealthhackers.org. On Twitter, we're at Hackers Health, and we randomly do stuff, right? So we'll either go to a conference and run a village. Sometimes we do painting classes where we'll have people join and we'll do like this paint, like we'll even like ship you painting supplies. We just wrapped up another one, but they were called mental health feel good boxes, where you could nominate people that were struggling and we would send them like some cool stuff. So all the information's on there. And if you want to volunteer, just contact us, and we have a Slack that we kind of throw everybody in.
Okay, definitely joining that Slack. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, amazing. To close us out, I want to do one tip that you have for the cybersecurity infosec community, and or maybe one thing that you wish you'd known about mental health before you were neck deep in the industry. Mark, let's start with you.
So Time Magazine, they just released some like horrifying stats. 76% of executives have difficulty making connections with the colleagues. Only 1/5 of people in the workforce have a real friend at work. And remote work is really pushing all of this more and more so. And relationships are so important, like real authentic relationships. They found in the study that like on the clock loneliness can have the same effect on our health every day as smoking 15 cigarettes. So that same effect on your body. And it's such a tough thing now because everybody's remote and virtual and everybody's working as hard as they possibly can, and you have all your home stuff. So I think making it a priority to build relationships, real authentic ones, and friendships, I think is so important. And we need to stop trying to be professional. You know, that like professionalism as a goal, it doesn't it doesn't work anymore. Professionals are lonely. Professionals are struggling. Professionals are people that are trying to hide core things about themselves that would allow them to make real connections. And so I just encourage everybody to, if you have time, connect with people. If you're on a call with anybody, show a little bit about who you are. It takes an immense amount of vulnerability that none of us are ever ready for. But I promise you, if you go there and you can build some of those relationships, it's going to help your mental health. You'll have somebody there with you. You'll have a friend that you can, I mean, I hate to say it, but like even just complaining and unloading on the day, and they understand it and they've been there with you. But I think even more so, just feeling like you're in a safe place at work because you have friends, I think is critical as well. So please make that a priority, even though it's a little bit tough to be that vulnerable.
Solid advice. Yeah. Crystal, do you have a tip you would like to share?
Yeah, I think I wish I had known sooner that there is no real way to separate your personal and professional. I mean, there are ways you can mentally keep yourself safe, but really, like, if my personal health suffers or my mental health suffers, I no longer can do my job correctly or well at work, right? If at work I'm burning myself out, I'm not happy, I'm lonely, whatever. If my work life sucks, I bring that home, right? There's just no way that those two things don't impact each other. And I think I used to be under the false impression that, yeah, you have a professional self and you have a personal self. And maybe I still do, and there always will be some division there. But realistically, you're one person, you're the same person. So you have to take care of that person holistically.
Well said. Super well said. Amanda, do you have a closing tip or something you wish you'd known?
To find a hobby outside of computer screens. It's very, very common for people to leave one screen and go to the next one and then pass out in bed and then wake up and go to another. Finding a hobby, it doesn't have to be outside, right? Just away from technology is a huge game changer. I know for a lot of people, because it gets you sucked in,
Right.
right?
That was going to be mine.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I so completely agree. I mean, especially like my job is, I mean, just like all of us looking at a screen, but specifically looking at social media, which is like kind of, man,
that is a thankless job, I feel.
But it's also like a source for networking, communication, community building. There are so many positive things about it. So I just absolutely struggle with finding this in the same place, my work and my fun. So I just totally agree with you. Finding anything, ideally several things that are not screen-based to give you pleasure and to find solace, and also reduce eye strain. Oh my gosh, you know,
there's a reason 3 of us are wearing glasses,
which I was going to exactly say. And somebody, I think in the comments, asked us where we got our glasses, which I think is Zenny for all of us. Is that right?
Is it? Sweet. Yeah. I love Zenny so much.
Me too. We should definitely be looking for a sponsorship, is what he's saying to me. So stay tuned. Amazing. Amanda, thank you so much for being our special guest on this episode. I'm really happy to have you on here, and I really hope that more people find out about mental health hackers. I'm absolutely going to get involved. So I'm really grateful that you were able to come on and tell us about that. And Crystal and Mark, I continue to look forward to working with you, because we do have a good thing going at Uptycs. If I can just say, we have a lot of good people who are leaning in and being vulnerable and leading by example. So I'm really grateful for that as well. We have a blog coming out about this topic shortly, and we actually are going to cover sort of a part 2 on mental health later this month. So stay tuned for that. We're going to give some perspective from outside the cybersecurity industry and actually have a professional on. I know that, you know, I'm also not a mental health professional, so I want to get that outsider info. So stay tuned for that. And thank you all so much for being here, and we will see you out in cyberspace. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you.